Goonies never say die. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And yes, you know exactly what it is that I'm reviewing. This one film from the 1980s from Warner Brothers, that's definitely, without a doubt, one of the most memorable, classic, definitive, big-time, just amazing adventure movies. It's got everything. It's got the Spielberg touch to it. It's got the whimsical, adventurous stuff, and with the kid characters that we have in this, the adventure that they get themselves into, memorable moments. Just, what more do I have to say, really? Because you know the basics that I'm talking about. And the fact that this movie, because who'd have thought, for Spielberg and the others who worked on this film, how much of an impact it would leave off. And over the years, how much love it has gotten. It's grown a cult following. It has its fans. It has inspired other pieces of media, like most notably, say, Stranger Things. And coincidentally, one of the cast members being in Stranger Things. What this movie left off is something that nobody will forget. So that's right, guys. I am finally reviewing, and seeing as how this movie is celebrating its anniversary, obviously, now is the time for me to review it. So yes, as I was saying, I am finally reviewing from the genius minds of Steven Spielberg, Chris Columbus, and the film's director, the late Richard Donner. This is The Goonies. Yes, The Goonies. Man, boy, am I glad to have finally have gotten around and watching this movie. I don't know what took me so long to get around to this movie. And look, I've explained this before, and you guys know this too. Hey, some movies that you just don't get around to. And for some people, like me, Goonies could be one of them. And yeah, now that I had finally gotten to watched Goonies, and perfect timing for its anniversary, yeah, I gotta say, the first things I have to say about Goonies, well, I of course knew about this movie even before I had seen it. I'd seen a few clips of this, and I was very familiar with one of the film's iconic characters, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, and hence, I'm wearing the shirt for the occasion. And, I knew, of course, how much of a success this movie is. A nostalgic film from Warner Brothers in the 1980s, and again, from the genius minds of Columbus, Spielberg, and Donner. And, also this being Amblin as well, not just Warner Brothers. And, knowing the cast members and whom, got to be a part of this movie, and this would be a big film for most of the cast members, and golly, because look what they would do next. And of course I will mention them. How much of an impact, as I said, this movie left off, and to the fans who love this movie, appreciate it, it's amazing. I really enjoyed this from beginning to end. It was no disappointment for me with what this movie has to offer because, it says it all with its adventure, with treasure, pirate stuff, our kid characters, what they get themselves into, and they're on a quest to save something in which, this town that they live in that will soon be bulldozed for golf courses. The country club expansion about to demolish, the Goonies Coast, as I recall, that's what it's called. No, because I have it up, because, Goondocks, Goondocks. So Goondocks. Because, how this movie was done, and with its amazing practical effects, and with ILM being involved, and how Goonies is most famous for the use of Stage 16, yeah, at Warner Brothers, because Stage 16, the tallest studio building in Warner Brothers' backlot, where, yeah, because a lot of great movies were shot in that studio, in that sound stage, you know, however you want to call it. I mean, yeah, sound stage, basically. But my point being, Goonies was the most famous film to be shot on that stage because, well, for one thing, where the kids find themselves at, they call themselves the Goonies, hence the title of the movie, because it's extraordinary. The fact that what was built on that soundstage, you know, Stage 16, was practical. And we all know, because there's a pirate ship in this movie, and that being legit. Yeah, because they legitimately built that pirate ship. But, you know, with what this film also has to offer, because it's about friendship, loyalty, and with our kid characters and a few others that join our fellow Goonies, and they would end up being Goonies as well, unexpectedly. And what they face from, say, evil and trying to avoid booby traps and such, and all the shenanigans they get themselves into. And also, I didn't quite realize that there is quite a lot of shouting in this movie. Not that I'm complaining, I'm just saying. But, you know, I'll accept it. Besides, you know, this movie comes from the 80s, so, yeah. I mean, compared to, say, some movies today with how some shouting and yelling is done, let me tell you, I'm sure you know what I mean, but by that. But anyways, so, yeah. And the music and score, fantastic, of course, and, the fact that, you know, we have Richard Donner and Steven Spielberg collaborating, and, you know, with what Richard Donner brought to this, both Donner, Spielberg, and Columbus, you know, what they brought is just so memorable. Nobody will forget this movie. Yeah, and with the hardcore fans, I know you're watching, just, yeah. Overall, The Goonies from 1985, definitely a classic, a definitive adventure movie. Yeah. Okay, so, as always, for me, read the description / the story. Old-fashioned yarn about a band of adventurous kids who take on the might of a property developing company which plans to destroy their home to build a country club. And as I said earlier, golf courses, pretty much. When the children discover an old pirate map in the attic, they follow it into an underground cavern in search of lost treasure, but come up against plenty of dangerous obstacles, yeah, along the way. Okay, so now that I read the description / the story, a little bit of background, just a little bit, yeah. And to keep it, you know, a bit short in how I'll talk about the background, because, well, like I said, coming from the genius minds of Columbus, Spielberg, and Donner, well, because, for starters, Spielberg, who had just began becoming a big-time executive producer, producing a lot of great films in the 80s, like, most notably, say, Poltergeist, the first Gremlins film, and that same year, in 1985, there was Back to the Future. And yeah, because, of course, Spielberg becoming a big-time director, but now entering into the producer's chair and bringing some great, extraordinary films to life at that time. And, well, with Spielberg and Columbus just having done the first Gremlins film, that being another memorable film in the 80s, also from Warner Brothers, you know. Well, because then they found themselves making this movie, developing this movie, writing the story, and yeah, because yeah, Spielberg is credited for being the writer of the story, and Columbus doing the screenplay. Yeah, and Spielberg picking Richard Donner to direct this because, well, by that point, Spielberg had admired and liked Donner's work, and, you know, obviously, most notably, Donner having done the first 2 Superman films, but at that time, most notably the first Superman, and yeah, that's another story, and I'm sure you know. Yeah. And for Richard Donner, because, well, after he was booted off the Superman franchise, well, because he found other great, you know, works as a director, directing some other pretty good films, but when it came to the Goonies, it would really get him back into high gear, and, well, you know, what would come next for Richard Donner would be like, say, well, the Lethal Weapon movies, or Scrooged, Maverick, need I go on? Just, yeah, and eventually he would, his version of Superman 2 would come to life, so yeah. And not to mention that same year, with Donner directing Goonies, another movie that he directed that came out that same year, Lady Hawk, yeah. Which was another pretty good film of Donner's, but yeah, definitely Goonies was the big one for Donner that same year. So yeah, Donner being brought in and, you know, was on board to do this movie, and like at one point, Donner and Spielberg took a road trip, and obviously scanning like the locations, the specific locations to do this movie and such, yeah. And of course, when it came to the cast, well, most prominently, two kid cast members that, you know, Spielberg and Columbus had previously worked with. Like, for Spielberg, because, yeah, Short Round himself, you know, having done Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, being attached to this, and young Corey Feldman, you know, who had worked with Columbus and Spielberg and Gremlins, being involved in this too. So, yeah. And not to mention that Goonies was also, with, you know, is just, yeah, I'm sure you probably didn't know this. Yeah, believe it or not, I should say, believe it or not, Goonies was Josh Brolin's first movie, because his father, James Brolin, being a big-time actor, and now his son stepping in the game, and yeah, look what would come next for Josh Brolin. Because who'd have thought, to everybody who saw Goonies, that, you know, this kid, whom this was his first movie, who'd have thought that many years later we would see him as the most evilest character in the Marvel Comics? You get the joke, but just, yeah, it's true, so yeah. But yeah, just overall, because, yeah, knowing the behind-the-scenes and facts on what was done with this movie, and from there on, just, yeah, amazing. And I'll be, yeah, and as I do this review, I'll have a couple of other fun facts to share, but yeah, that's the best I can do for some background, so yeah. Alright, let's now get into the movie itself, yeah. Well, what an interesting way to start off this movie, because we literally start off, you know, in this jail, county jail, and already, because, and I remember when I watched this, I was like, well, already off to a good start, because we literally see a character supposedly hung in his jail cell, but he fooled the cop. And basically, yeah, that was a way to fool the cop, and even leaving a note that, you know, you really think I was gonna hang myself? Well, not. And yeah, because we already get the introduction of our main villain characters, the Fratelli family. We have Jake Fratelli being played by Robert Davi. We have Francis, played by Joe Pantoliano, if I'm getting the last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. And the mother of the two brothers, Mama Fratelli, being played by Anne Ramsey. Yeah, so Jake being broken out of prison, he breaks himself out of prison, meets up with his brother and mother, and setting up some gas, you know, and lighting a match, and yeah, for the police to, you know, fall behind, you know, they don't follow them and such. But yeah, a police chase pursues, and we see some of our main kid characters actually kind of, yeah, a few of them witnessing the action of this police chase. One of them most notably being Chunk. And Chunk being played by young Jeff Cohen, yeah. And actually, this is really the only movie that Jeff Cohen did, because after doing Goonies, he was getting, when he was auditioning and, you know, getting, you know, was gonna be in other movies, like, he got, like, you know, casted, like, for something, like, you know, similar to Chunk, you know what I mean? I mean, eventually, yeah, he didn't, his acting career didn't last long, and he did something else, I think that, yeah, still had to do with the movie business. And actually, Richard Donner helped pay his way to where Jeff would go to. So, yeah, that was really sweet and kind of Richard Donner. And that's the thing about Richard Donner, because, you know, Richard Donner, especially when he did the first two Superman films, there was really a sense of family. So without a doubt, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure for all of the movies that Donner had directed, there was really a sense of family because, you know, everybody warming up to Richard Donner and such, just, yeah, and I'm sure you know this. Anyways, so, yeah, and our main cast of kid characters, might as well now bring them up, because I already mentioned Chunk, and, we also have Mikey and Brand, There, yeah, Mikey Walsh and Brand Walsh. Mikey being played by young Sean Astin, a.k.a. Sam, from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah, because, you know, who'd have thought for the audience in 1985 that years later we would see young Sean Astin in one of the top best movie trilogies in all of cinema, literally. And the fact that he is the son of John Astin, a.k.a. the original Gomez Addams. Not biological, but still, and that is true, so I'm not, you know, look it up if you want to. And Mikey's older brother, Brand, being played by young Josh Brolin, and like I said, this was, Goonies was Josh Brolin's first movie, yeah. And the other kid characters, because, yeah, like, those who are Goonies, yeah, Mikey, Chunk, and there's also Mouth, being played by Corey Feldman, and there's also Data, literally, that's his name, Data. And that's funny because we had a character named Data before, say, an iconic character who's named Data. You know, the android. Of course, I had to mention that. But anyways, and Data, of course, being played by Ki Ha Kwan. If I might be butchering some of his name, but you know who it is, of course. As I said earlier, a.k.a. Short Round from Temple of Doom. So yeah, and there's no doubt that, you know, Spielberg handpicked Ki to be attached to this movie. Without a doubt, because, yeah. And seeing as how he did Goonies just 1 year after doing the second Indiana Jones film, which, by the way, is a prequel to Raiders. So, yeah, keep that in mind. And by the way, because, yeah, it doesn't take us that long to quickly, know what each of these kid characters are like, their personalities. That especially goes for Data, because he's quite the gadgetry kid, being inspired by his father, who does gadgetries and such, and 007 having an influence on Data. I mean, heck, a little bit of the 007 theme is played, dun-dun, dun-dun, da-da-da. Yeah, and, honestly, the gadgetries that Data have, they're pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, the chemistry so far with these characters, like, some of them just, like, nitpicking at each other, giving some of them a hard time, like, most notably, they're giving Chunk a good chunk of a hard time. But, look, besides that, like, there is friendship for these kids, definitely. And yeah, because they call themselves the Goonies, these misfits who live in the Goondocks, them being these gang of kids being referred to as the Goonies. And, yeah, and also Brand, because, yeah, Brand is a very interesting older brother character. I mean, not to say he's a bad brother, not like one of those, but, he at times, early on in this movie, has some pretty decent chemistry, I guess you can say, towards his little brother. Well, and especially because, yeah, with what's going on at the start of this movie, and as I read in the description / the story, where, yeah, because all of them being well aware of what's currently going on, in their neighborhood. Again, the Goondocks. Also, yeah, because we also get the introduction of Mikey and Brand's mother, Mrs. Walsh, being played by Mary Ellen Trainor, and she brings in this Spanish lady who's going to basically help out with packing up some stuff in boxes, because, yeah, the Walsh family will soon be moving from their home at the Goondocks, because, again, and as I said, very soon, anytime, the Goondocks will be bulldozed, demolished, to make way for some... and I have a good feeling that in the movie itself, who in Goondocks was asking for this? Freaking golf courses, just nobody asked for them, just golly. Isn't there, like, don't they already have... I'm sure they already had golf courses there, but still, did they really have to expand it more and probably made them more really epic and detailed looking and such? You know what I mean? Just... Anyways. And, yeah, because with the Spanish lady named Rosalita being played by Lou, but I'm gonna butcher her last name, son. Ontiveros, maybe I got that close, but, again, you know me. Yeah, because, again, Rosalita helping out with the Walsh family on packing up some stuff in boxes. And it just so happens that, yeah, Rosalita can't speak English. However, Mouth can speak Spanish, so he helps out Mrs. Walsh translate for Rosalita. But, jeez Louise, what he does is the total opposite. I should have seen this coming, yeah. Because, yeah, Mouth is he's definitely got some quite of a handful moments with him in this movie, you know. But, you know, at the same time, he's still a good character and still good friends with his fellow Goonies, still. And golly, because, yeah, young Corey Feldman, well, no disappointment. Nobody was a disappointment in this movie. I know I'm going to keep saying that throughout my review, but I'm just saying. So, point being, Mouth helping translate for Mrs. Walsh what she's saying to Rosalita. And again, the total opposite, because Mouth explaining that some parts of the house being like, you know, sex dungeons, stuff like that, you know, just... And Rosalita, she seems to handle it pretty well. So, yeah. But anyways, But yeah, and with the Goonies and Brand, because yeah, they of course don't like with what's gonna happen to their homes, because yeah, everybody, I'm pretty sure by this point, except for some of them, having left the houses in that neighborhood, and from there on, just, yeah. And then there's a moment where it's brought up to the Goonies, and to speed things up some, about what's up in the attic. And yeah, basically, Mikey and Brand's father has worked at this museum and holding some, you know, artifacts and so on. And, well, you know, with Chunk, Mouth, and Data, along with Brand, them going up and checking out what's in the attic, Mikey is against this, and by some of them just messing around with some stuff, thankfully, nothing's really broken just yet, but until, like, say, Chunk at one point accidentally breaks a portrait and the glass shatters. However, there's a map inside of that portrait, and that's when they discover that, yeah, this treasure map actually belongs to this pirate from 1632, which being One-Eyed Willie. They discover that One-Eyed Willie, from long, long ago, hid this treasure. Found this treasure and kept it hidden and such, and basically, little do they realize at first that this treasure that was discovered by One-Eyed Willie, and actually, because One-Eyed Willie's actual name is William B. Portobello, if I'm getting the last name right, yeah. And he was a Flemish from the Flanders. Yeah, just the detail and dialogue that Mikey gets into explaining about One-Eyed Willie, you know, pirates and stuff like that, and with the treasure, is very fascinating and such. But, you know, Brand especially, I think, yeah, not getting into it, and, well, there is another moment where Chunk then discovers a newspaper article on someone who was aware of this hidden treasure from One-Eyed Willie and tried to find it, but unfortunately, he got lost, never was seen again, and yeah, he basically never found it. That being Chester Copperpot. In the 1930s, he tried to find this treasure, and yeah, he was a reclusive scavenger from Astoria, Astoria, Oregon, which, yeah, that's where Goondocks is located, and he vanished, as I said, in the 1930s, while searching for One-Eyed Willie's treasure. And with the Goonies, you know, discovering this, and with this news article, well, Mikey especially is very fascinated by this, and it does occur to them, most prominently on Mikey, that if they manage to find this treasure, maybe possibly, this could save their homes. It could save Goondocks altogether. So, and yeah, and Mikey, from there on, just wanting to give this a shot, and when he involves his fellow Goonies into this, Brand, on the other hand, not being a Goonie yet, passes on this and just, finds this nonsense. And there was a moment where, the Goonies and Brand get an unexpected visit, from someone from the, country club expansion. And, that being, Mr. Perkins. Yeah, Mr. Perkins, being played by Kurt Hansen. Yeah. Was wondering if their parents were home and, leaving some papers for, their father to sign and so on. Just, yeah. And already we can tell that Mr. Perkins, and obviously those at the country club, are big jerks and just ridiculously just tearing down a simple neighborhood for no reason. There's no reason to put those, pointless golf courses when there already pretty much are golf courses there. Anyways, yeah. And there's a nice moment between Mikey and Brand, because they do hug it out, because, again, the situation that they're in, and the fact that there's a good chance that they will have to leave Goondocks, and it's going to be gone forever. And even though, because they hug it out, Brand just dragging poor Mikey back in, because that's what being a big brother is for Brand. But after that, and I believe by, the next day, Mikey gets his fellow Goonies together, and thus they are planning to follow the directions of the treasure map, and thus find their way to wherever they're going to find this lost treasure in order to save Goondocks. And unbeknownst to their family, of course. And at one point they tie up Bran, because, they don't want him following them for now. Tying him up with one of his exercising machines that stretch, tying it around him on this chair, and just... poor Bran, because, just shouting at them and, threatening them. It's pretty funny. And even when his mom and Rosalita come back, they don't help him at all. They just leave him there. Do they not, does Mrs. Walsh not see the situation Brand is in? Eventually, he does break free. And at one point, one of the Goonies actually popped his new tires on his bike, popping out the air. So, that slows down Bran some more, and with that, Bran still manages to find a ride to find them, taking a little girl's bike. Jeez. And by the way, because there was a funny moment, because, there's a lot of great funny moments in this movie, and one that happened earlier where, Chunk accidentally, not intentionally, knocking down a statue. Nothing was broken except for the penis part. I'm trying to fix it. It's up, but it's supposed to be down. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen this movie, so yeah. But so with the Goonies trying to make progress to get to where they're supposed to specifically be, to follow the directions of the map, eventually they seem to make progress. They're near a beach site, and by following the directions and these artifacts, these pieces that they have, this would lead to them finding this creepy restaurant, and where, that will supposedly lead them to where they need to specifically go. And little do they realize that, that place already has company. Chunk especially, feeling very worried about this. And once again, the Goonies just giving Chunk a hard time. And another thing is, the characters in this movie hardly listen to poor Chunk, Especially because when Chunk, having most notably seen the police chase, and he shared it with his fellow Goonies, but nobody really believed him on that, because he had made up other stories before, like mentioning one about where supposedly Michael Jackson stopped by at his house to take a leak, but it wasn't really Michael Jackson, it was his sister. And fun fact, supposedly Michael Jackson was present on the set of Goonies, and he supposedly filmed a cameo, but of course that never made its way into the final film. And I'm sure maybe some of you know about this, Wonder what that would have been like. I'm sure it would have been funny, just, having Michael Jackson just randomly show up in this movie. Anyways, but, especially since Michael Jackson being a big thing in the 80s and the 90s, go figure. And by the way, coming back to Brand, because, you know, struggling trying to catch up to them and being on this little girl's bike, he's at one point encountered by some high school friends of his. Yeah, at least two of them. And one of them that's giving him a hard time, that being Troy, being played by young Stephen Anton. And these two girls, in fact, actually, yeah, one of them was brought up earlier. Andy, most prominently, being played by Carrie Green, and Steph, being played by Martha Plimpton. Yeah, I got the last name right. And whom, just 1 year after being in this movie, Martha would find herself in another pretty big film, The Mosquito Coast, with the late young River Phoenix and Harrison Ford, of course. Yeah. So yeah, and Troy is, all three of them, they're offering Brand a ride, but Brand kindly passes, but Troy, he insists and even holds on to poor Brand's hand and just speeds down the line while he's on that bike. And bit by bit, the little girl's bike breaks off, and Andy and Steph are trying to get Troy to stop what he's doing. Then it leads to Brand go flying off the edge of a cliff and such. Well, not a cliff, but, you know, still a hill, basically. Jeez Louise. Well, we can already tell that, yeah, Troy is a dick. And not to mention, apparently, Troy being involved with the demolish of Goondogs, because he was there the next time we would see Mr. Perkins. So, yeah, but until I get there, of course. Coming back to the Goonies, because, yeah, and to speed things up some still, because with them making their way to the restaurant, well, like, Chuck at one point discovered this car, by the back of it, having some bullet holes, and, yeah, Chunk not liking the sight of it and trying to warn his fellow Goonies. Well, they don't listen to him, and, you know, shut up, Chunk. Poor Chunk. And, yeah, then making their way into the restaurant. And, well, at one point, because when they discover they're not alone, because, yep, inside this restaurant are the Fratelli family, and them being interrogated by the Fratelli family, and, you know, the Goonies trying to, you know, make an excuse and saying that, you know, they came to get something in this restaurant. They're thirsty, wanting water. The Fratelli brothers being very threatening towards the Goonies. And, yeah, so they're stuck there for right now, being held hostage, technically, by the Goonies. Well, by the Fratellis, sorry. Don't want to get Fratellis and Goonies mixed up. Yeah, and I gotta slow down some. But, as I was saying, because, yeah, and just again, a lot of shouting that happens, especially by this point, and with them being intimidated and threatened by the Fratelli brothers, well, especially the mama, so... and, well, Mikey, most notably, investigating secretly / quietly, unbeknownst to the Fratelli family, sneaking down to the basement of the restaurant, and actually at one point makes a discovery that there is a third brother of the Fratellis, and we only get a little glimpse of him, and, yeah, we can see that this, from a glimpse of this third sibling of the Fratellis, he's very deformed, and from the back of him, and he's chained, he's cuffed and such, chains attached to the wall, there's a TV right there, he's sitting down on a chair, and, well, because Jake, just especially giving his other brother a hard time, just, yeah, and Mikey having witnessed this some, but trying to keep hidden from Jake, and as Jake does a bit of Italian singing, just, yeah, even poor Mikey at one point, his butt sat on a mouse trap, and, you know, he kept his voice quiet, he didn't let out or anything, good on him. But yeah, just after that, Mikey does make his way out of there, and sure enough, Brand is there, and, yep, he's reunited with his younger brother and with the Goonies, and Mikey trying to explain what he just saw down there, this monster, however he describes it, that's down in the basement. And the fellow Goonies by this point, especially Chunk, they just want to go home, but Mikey making it very clear that they shouldn't, because this is their day, and if it is going to be their last day, being all of them together as Goonies. And then at one point, Andy and Steph did show up, and yeah, because, well, they obviously ditched Troy, because, yeah, obviously they were not satisfied with what he did with poor Brand. So now Andy and Steph join in with Brand and the others, while Mikey and the other Goonies, they go back in to investigate in the restaurant, and they're at one point unable to get inside the restaurant, but they manage to trigger Chunk by breaking down the door, where Mouth tells poor Chunk that, you know, I took naked pictures of your mother and so on. And yeah, that triggers Chunk, and he does break down the door. So yeah, they found their way back in the restaurant. And well, by this point, the Fratelli family actually for right now, left the restaurant. So now it's just them, and with them proceeding in, then Brand stepping in, and, Andy and Steph, they do stay outside for a little bit, but eventually they join with the others after they set something off, like something creepy, and yeah, it sends them running into the restaurant. And also, because, in the restaurant, there were a few times where Andy and Brand tried to kiss / make out, but they kept getting interrupted a few times, and when, all of them were making their way down to the basement and seeing what Mikey witnessed, but them being too terrified, and yeah, because the third Fratelli sibling let out like a scary sound. Yeah. Okay, but anyways, and still, to speed things up some, because the further they, scavenge around the, abandoned, creepy restaurant, because they do at one point, and because, another thing about Chunk, because with what's written into this character, always craving for drinks and food and such, and he goes for some water, and he does at one point accidentally knock down the tube of the jug of water and such. You push it, and water comes out. Yeah, accidentally knocking it down, but making a discovery that there is a fireplace, and actually there's something behind that fireplace, like something underground where they can go down to. But also at one point, Data makes a discovery that there's this machine that can provide like $50 or something. Yeah, and yeah, Data thinks that they've accomplished by saving Goondogs, but nope, turns out that it's fake money. So yeah. But then, also, another moment where Chunk smells ice cream, and there's this freezer where there's ice cream. The other Goonies, along with Andy, Steph, and Brand, they discover behind Chunk in the freezer that in this garbage bag, there's a dead frozen body. Ugh. And also Chunk, at times, letting out these screams, it's pretty funny. God bless Jeff Cohen, with what he brought to Chunk and everybody else, because, and that's another thing, because Spielberg especially, because, Spielberg being involved in this, always great when it comes to movies having kid actors / actresses. Yeah, so good at that. And even if, he's not directing it, still, his involvement, amazing. Yeah. But yeah, so, with them discovering the body, and, because with them kind of, messing around with the body in the bag and such, then at one point the Fratelli family came back, and yeah, they scattered, making their way to the fireplace, going underground. They accidentally left Chunk behind with the dead body, leaving him in the freezer. But yeah, each of them going down through the fireplace, and they do discover at one point that, they left poor Chunk behind, and Chunk keeping it quiet when the Fratelli family show up, and also because, more on the Fratelli family, because, not only are they evil, but they do have some funny moments, and it's, I always like that when we get some villains, who, yes, they are evil, but they do have some funny moments, especially if the villain is giving, two other villains or henchmen a hard time. Because, Mama Fratelli giving her two sons a hard time, just kind of, beating them, sometimes just, get it together, stuff like that. Yeah, it's great. But, so with the Goonies proceeding on, and with what they do next. And as for Chunk, well, because, yeah, the further they continue on with their adventure, and now that Brand, Andy, and Steph have joined in on the Goonies adventure, well, because, yeah, the more that they proceed through these tunnels, and with what more they discover, yeah, because, and still, to speed things up some, because, like, well, like, at one point, they find themselves in this one part of this tunnel where there are pipes. And, yeah, because the main pipeline where all the pipes are, like where the restrooms are, showers, and, you know, fountains and such. And as I recall, yeah, it's like, it's their way of, they start to shout and, you know, hit on the pipes to get their attention up above. But yeah, this would lead to them breaking some of the pipes, and some pretty funny moments where, yeah, because someone trying to drink from a fountain, it goes up and down, or when trying to turn on the shower, it goes into this wall, or someone that's going to the bathroom in the toilet, like, a geyser from the toilet erupts. Thankfully, nothing disgusting. Of course, that wouldn't happen in the movie. Oh, God, because now I'm thinking of it. Now I can't get it out of my head. Anyways. So, as I was saying, back to where I was. Well, yeah, and at one point, Chunk, actually, because he manages to, you know, get in contact with his fellow Goonies. And, well, because what Chunk can do by this point, I mean, yeah, because he did make his way to the fireplace that are right there, and, well, what Chunk can do is get himself out of the restaurant and to go phone up the police, yeah, get backup and such. And he does at one point find himself out in the road at nighttime, and yeah, because we're up to nighttime, and this one car stops and telling the car driver about the Fratelli family. But it just so happens to be the Fratelli family. Yeah, should have seen that coming. Yeah, so poor Chunk gets captured by the Fratellis. I mean, it was kind of bound to happen, right? Because with poor Chunk being accidentally left behind. And yeah, because the Fratelli family interrogating and threatening poor Chunk, and they were like, with them threatening him, like they were literally almost about to blender one of his hands. And they wanted him to tell what Chunk knew about the treasure map and his fellow Goonies and so on with what was going on. But Chunk does the opposite. He goes from his childhood to some stuff that he confesses about. It's pretty funny. And this goes on for quite a while, because, yeah, whenever we cut back to Chunk and the Fratellis, they just let him, they really don't do anything, because he just talks it off, being very emotional. Hey, at least Jake was very invested in with what Chunk was saying, but not much for Francis and Mama Fratelli. But anyways, but coming back to the Goonies, Brand, Steph, and Andy, because, well, the further they continue their quest/adventure, well, because, yeah, the further they continue, they do at one point stumble upon the skeletons. And some of them freaking out, like especially Andy. Like Andy by this point is freaking out, and I think she's like at one point worried about her hair and such, as I recall. Yeah. And, well, when they come across these skeletal remains, these skeletons, well, one of them, Mikey especially, presuming that probably it's the skeleton of Chester Copperbot. And it turns out it is, because, well, as I said earlier, Chester Copperbot from the 1930s had go and investigate and, well, being a scavenger, trying to find One-Eyed Willie's treasure. But he never came back. He was never seen again. He was reported missing. And, yeah, this is where the Goonies discover the remains of poor Chester. He sadly never made his way further to where the treasure is. And yeah, by checking his wallet and so on, just, yeah. But, you know, they're not stopping there. Even when at one point, Data tried to do something like using one of his gadgetries, and, this also had to do with booby traps. And that's another thing, because there are a good chunk of times in this movie where, when they say, whenever someone says booby traps, you mean booby traps. That's what I said. Like, thinking the opposite of how that character pronounced it, that term. Just, booby traps, Anyways, but yeah, because speaking of booby traps, some booby traps do set off. And, well, these booby traps, obviously, that have to do with anybody that's trying to find One-Eyed Willie's treasure. And them dodging the booby traps because these boulders coming down on them, and the further they make their way, up to when, like, say, moving this rock, this boulder, and Steph making a comment that God put that boulder there for a reason, the stone, rock, etc. But eventually, and still, to speed things up some, because they find their way to this beautiful waterfall. After all that danger they went through, some of them were panicking. They're okay now. They're calm when they see this beautiful waterfall. So clearly, because they found their way to a peaceful location where, there's nothing bad that's going to come their way next. Yeah, this nice, beautiful waterfall. And, and in the water, they find these coins. But it turns out not to be the treasure, because even Mouth pointing out that one of these pennies and so on is the face of Nixon, Kennedy, and so on. Just, yeah. And by the way, there are a few times where Steph and Mouth have a little bit of a chemistry, and I would say probably it's kind of it's gonna get there eventually, where there's like a peak of romance between Steph and Mouth. And what more they discover in this one location of this cave they're in, where there's a waterfall, well, they just so happen to be right above a wishing well. And, Andy especially is done by this point. Not to mention, when up above the wishing well, they can hear Troy. Yeah, Troy just so happens to be right up there at the wishing well, and two of Troy's friends, being played by Jeb Stewart Adams and Eric Brandt Wells. Yeah, Eric plays Troy's friend number 2, and Jeb Stewart plays Troy's friend number 1. That's how they're credited. Also, to name some of the other cast members, because the sequence where they were messing with the pipes, and that sequence where those that were dealing with water, and because Man in Shower number 1 being played by Gene Ross, Man in Shower number 2, Max Cigar, if I'm saying the last name right, Man in Shower number 3, Newt Arnold, and reporter, and also, there was a tennis player, because this is near like a tennis court. There's a tennis player being played by Orrin C. Harvey, and there's also these 2 reporters that, we do prominently see at the end of the movie. Reporter number 1 is Jack O'Leary, and number 2 is Patrick Cameron. Yeah, Jack O'Leary and Patrick Cameron, so, yeah. And there's a few more cast members that are uncredited, but, I'll get to them shortly. Anyways, because with them having discovered the wishing well, Andy wants out of this, and even, when they call out to Troy, well, Andy's gonna go up there first, but Mikey making it clear to all of them that they shouldn't stop, and bringing up, as I started off this review, Goonies never say die. And from there on, because, technically, coincidentally, as I also brought up earlier, Brand, I meant to say Brand, getting the names mixed up. Brand, Andy, and, Feth, they would unexpectedly become part of the Goonies. And, so Andy did not go up, Steph. Yeah, as I said, Andy, Steph, and Brand, they would unexpectedly become Goonies. And the only thing that came up from the wishing well when Troy was lifting up the bucket was, the jacket that Andy was wearing. And, Troy realizing that, Andy became a Goonie and shouting, you Goonie! Is how he puts that. So, they, all of the Goonies, they continue on with what they're doing. Meanwhile, coming back to Chunk, because, at a certain point, because after Chunk is finished with all he had to say to the Fratelli family, then, because they once again threaten him because with blending his hand. However, that's interrupted when something from underneath the fireplace emerges, because the Goonies did at one point let loose some bats. And actually, there were a few shots where the bats, and you can tell, of course, that some of the bats where they were, like, getting in some of the characters' faces, they were on string. You could easily tell, even to this day, that, yeah, those are fake bats. They're on string, but who cares, you know? That's the charm of the movie, you know. And yeah, the bats, they got out of the fireplace, and yeah, they're in some of the Fratelli family's faces, but just, yeah. And that's when they discover, because, yeah, they had made their way down beneath the tunnels and where the treasure is. So thus, the Fratelli family, they go to catch up to the Goonies and to where, yeah, this will lead them to. And they at one point throw Chunk in the dungeon with a third sibling. Yeah, the third sibling that we saw earlier being chained up and such. And that being, yeah, the iconic character of Goonies, Sloth. Yes, now we come up to Sloth, and Sloth being played by John Matuszak, if I'm even getting his last name right. Again, you know me sometimes, yeah. So Sloth, whom is the third sibling / third brother of the Fratellis, and Chunk being really the first Goonie to encounter and see Chunk full-time, and being frightened at first by the sight of of Sloth. However, Sloth is not as bad as how he seems. He's a harmless, very soft and sweet being. You know, he's a human being, obviously. But again, just like he was born deformed. And what we learn about Sloth, why he's born deformed, oh my gosh, and how he was raised by his mother, obviously not a good sign. But when we learn about it, but until I get there. And the interactions between Chunk and Sloth, well, it doesn't take that long for them to really connect, and yeah, that especially goes for Chunk. Even Chunk at one point offering Sloth, gotta slow down, a piece of a candy bar, yeah, a stick bar and such, and but because Chunk was tied up to the chair, he tried throwing it at Sloth. It hit his head. It didn't land in his hand or anything. That's when Sloth just went like, "Ugh!" And Chunk panicked. Like, well, obviously Chunk thinking that Sloth was probably going to attack him, but no, because, well, basically, to put it this, Sloth is not him when he's angry. He's not him when he's hungry, I should say. Yeah, just like what those commercials say. You're not you when you're hungry. And because of that, Sloth really, by this point, breaking off the chains and breaking off him being tied to the chair and going for the chocolate bar. Then he sets free Chunk. So yeah, both of them are free. And yeah, eventually they would catch up to the rest of the Goonies and help them out and such, yeah. And now that the Fratelli family is on their tail. And at one point, Chunk did try to ring up the police. He did finally, but just so happens that this policeman that answers Chunk's phone call, the sheriff, yeah, the sheriff being played by Paul Turepe, if I'm getting the last name right, yeah. He doesn't believe in what Chunk is saying, and he is very well aware of, what Chunk has said in the past, but yeah, this time it is for real, and it's quite similar to The Boy Who Cried Wolf, right, that kind of thing. Also, some of the other characters that we see, like, even early on this movie, like, there was a prison guard at the start of this movie being played by George Robotham, if I'm even getting the last name right, again, you know me sometimes. And there was also Bill being played by Bill Bradley, yeah. Anyways, but so no luck for Chunk trying to get some help and by ringing up the police, and even when, like, say, Chunk accidentally got the phone cord, torn off and such, so Yeah, so much for trying to call the police and to think that the police would believe in that kind of thing. Yeah. And as for the Goonies, coming back to them, because yeah, with them still proceeding, well, because yeah, the further they proceed with their adventure, and them still following the directions and on the map, and at one point they found this this bone necklace. Yeah, it's actually a skeleton key, right? And well, it's on string. Mikey puts it around his neck, and yeah, still to speed things up some. Well, at one point, then we come to the sequence where they come face to face with this skeleton pipe organ. Yeah, this skeleton organ and such, and yeah. And by this point, well, yeah, still, the Fratelli family still on their tail, and by this point they're getting very close to them. And, well, even like there was a moment where Data setting off some gadgetries of his, you know, booby traps or something, letting out some like oil on this log that they passed by, you know, they crossed and such. I should say crossed. And yeah, because like say when the two Fratelli brothers made their way there, well, yeah, they did slip and they hit their crotches. Ooh, yeah, because that's going to leave a mark. And yeah, when they do make their way to this bone organ, as it's called, yeah. And yeah, because it being made out of skeletal remains and, well, because some specific keys that most prominently Andy plays, because in looking at the map and, well, something that they put up, like this paper, and with the certain keys, like, you know, A and C, and it's basically like pressing the right key on the bone organ will open a passage where it'll lead them to next. But if by pressing on the wrong key, it sets off parts of the ground, you know, breaking and crumbling, and yeah, a booby trap basically. And yeah, Andy being very careful on which correct key to press and play, and with the Fratelli family still right behind them, and one gadgetry from Data that he let off is like a punching bag. So yeah, he accidentally activated it and it punched him, but this time, yeah, it punched one of the Fratelli brothers, and just, yeah. Well, that gave them some extra time, because when they got punched, but yeah. But eventually, yeah, they managed to, especially, yeah, Andy, managing to play the bone organ and the door that where it's going to lead them to next, yeah, they proceed on, and by this point, like, the ground is almost gone, but yeah, they make their way out just in time, and right when the Fratelli family come in, they try to shoot them, but yeah, they fail on trying to shoot them with a gun. And each of the Goonies going down this waterfall, eventually they would find themselves in another big cave, and this is where the big reveal is, you know, they get, yeah, the unveil of the pirate ship. Yes, this secret hidden cave where a pirate ship, you know, is there, yeah, in this cave. And yeah, and fun fact about that, because again, the fact that that was built on one of the famous sound stages of Warner Brothers, 16, and the fact that they actually legitimately built that pirate ship, it's just extraordinary. I think, yeah, because I recall, like, knowing the specific details, they had to, like, add some parts or something to the stage where, yeah, because, you know, to add water to the sound stage and with the set of Goonies. And also, when, yeah, the Goonie characters, the characters of the Goonies, and yeah, the new members of the Goonies, you know, from, say, Andy, Brand, and Steph, yeah, because all of them seen the pirate ship for the first time. Here's the thing. Richard Donner wanted to film their actual reactions the first time they were seeing this pirate ship. And he did. However, the first time Richard shot this, their actual reactions, well, at one point, Josh Brolin, he let out an F-bomb in reaction to the pirate ship. I mean, yeah, I mean, who can blame Josh Brolin, because it is a sight to see. And yeah, that, to, you know, poor Richard Donner, because, you know, they had to start that again. They had to do another take, but looking at the film itself, and it's not like we're getting all of their reactions in one shot and in one take. We cut to the characters and how they react to seeing the ship one by one. I don't know, because it beats me, but you could have just not used the shot where Brolin let out the F-bomb. So yeah. Also, another fun fact on the pirate ship, because yeah, it's true. Well, after Goonies was complete, after filming Goonies, Donner at one point tried to sell off the pirate ship. Not, like, really for money or something, just, offering it to someone else that maybe could have that ship in use for whatever. He tried giving the ship to each Disney and Universal, but neither of them didn't want that ship. And Donner was thinking that if he gave it most notably to Disney, then maybe they could stick it in Pirates of the Caribbean, or maybe use it for if there's any movie that they would do that requires a pirate ship. But nope, Disney had no use for it, and neither did Universal. Golly, and to think that years later, and coincidentally, that same year for both Disney and Universal, they would have two big live-action movies of theirs. Disney with Curse of the Black Pearl, and Universal with Peter Pan, with Jason Isaacs as Captain Hook. Think about it. If they could have used that ship or something, that was a total waste. Golly, what were they thinking at that time? Not wanting to have that ship. Or if possibly Dick Donner would have considered someone else, maybe another movie studio that would have wanted that ship, or what if say Warner Brothers? Then maybe they could have used that ship for something else. But no, sadly, what ended up happening to that amazing constructed pirate ship in Goonies? Destroyed completely. But, let's face it, in the end, that ship, that specific pirate ship, will best be remembered for being in this movie. Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, that was the reason that ship was built, for this movie. And also, speaking more of props, I mean, look, even though the big-sized pirate ship didn't last that long, it was eventually destroyed, Dick Donner did end up keeping the model of the ship, yeah. So, which, hey, it's still pretty cool. Here's another thing, more on the subject of props, then we'll continue with the movie. Young Sean Baker, not Sean Baker, wrong Sean. Sean Astin, what's with me? Young Sean Astin actually got to keep a copy of the map that was used in the movie. I mean, I don't know, because I'd like to think there was probably more than just one prop map used for the movie, but my point being is that when young Sean Astin got to keep that map, what happened later, his mom mistaken the map prop for just this blank of paper and such, and she threw it away! When I found out about that, I'm not joking, when I found out about that fun fact, that Sean Astin's mom threw that map prop away, I literally said, what? You can imagine just yeah, what is it with parents sometimes throwing away important items, especially with poor Sean Astin. He got to keep an actual movie prop. I'm just saying, because don't tell me that is not ridiculous to you with what I've just shared with you. Any of you for the first time that are hearing this from me, if you didn't know about that, yeah. But like I said, I don't know, because there can't have just been one map prop for this film, right? Well, unless Sean Astin confirmed this or whatever he had to say about that, I wonder, how Dick Donner, because probably Sean Astin must have told Richard about his mommy having thrown away, you know what I mean? Yeah, I wonder how Dick Donner reacted to that, man. I wonder if Sean Astin's mom did realize that was a mistake of her, and really gave a proper apology to her son. Yeah, little did she know, sadly. Little did she know. All right, anyways, back to the movie. So, by this point, they have found the location of where One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship is, where the treasure be hidden. Yeah. And with them making their way further to the pirate ship and climbing on board it, and them investigating at one point down below the deck of the pirate ship, and more skeletons being seen, you know, the retired pirates as Walt Disney referred to them. It's true, that's a fun fact, yeah. That's how Walt Disney referred to the pirate skeletons, yeah, retired pirates. That's a fun way to put it. But as I was saying, point being, finding more skeletons, this time pirate skeletons, and, well, there's no sign of treasure. But up until they go up to another upper deck inside the ship, you know, below the ship, you know what I mean. And Mikey being the first one to go in the room and see that, yeah, there is, behold, a sight of treasure, and Mikey coming face to face with the skeleton of One-Eyed Willie himself. And there's a very, I guess you could say a touching moment where Mikey has a talk with One-Eyed Willie, and the fact, because, well, you know, Mikey feeling as though that One-Eyed Willie was a Goonie himself, if not one of the first Goonies. And then Mikey noticing everybody else being right there with candlesticks, and they were there for quite a while. And, well, they did have Mikey his moment. And even introducing One-Eyed Willie to the other Goonies, yeah. So, they get what they can. The jewels, the diamonds, everything that will save Goondocks. Except for one. And that's when, and yeah, Mikey realizes that, yeah, there's one more booby trap. This specific treasure that belongs to One-Eyed Willie. So Mikey telling them to leave it for One-Eyed Willie. It's his. But, unfortunately, the Fratelli family, they showed up, and now they have them hostage at gunpoint, and now they're actually going to play pirates, making them walk the plank. Even at one point, Data tried to unleash one of his gadgets. It worked, but yeah, not enough. So sending Andy being the first one to walk the plank, then after she walked the plank, Brand followed her, and yeah, 2 down, who's next? And yeah. But just in the nick of time, Chunk and Sloth finally show up to save the day, to help the fellow Goonies take on the Fratellis. And yeah, because one moment where Brand and Andy, they were hiding for cover, and, well, they finally start to make out. And actually, because, yeah, early on, and at the waterfalls, Andy called out for Brand, because, yeah, and then Brand had Mikey go to see what Andy wanted. Little did both of them realize what Andy was going to do. And because Andy was closing her eyes for this, because she thought that she was about to kiss Brand, but instead she kissed Mikey. And even Steph found out about this. She found it amusing. And yeah, because when Brand and Andy finally kissed, because when Andy accidentally kissed Mikey, she never, like, she obviously mistaken Mikey for Brand, and thought that, you know, when did Brand have braces? No, those are Mikey's braces. And yeah, because when they finally made out, Andy and Brand, Andy asked Brand on, you know, what happened to his braces, and that's when it occurs to both of them that, yeah, she accidentally kissed Mikey, but Andy just, you know, telling, you know, Brand to shut up and just, you know, forget about it, and they continue to make out more. And yeah, again, with Chunk and Sloth coming in to save the day, Sloth easily taking on his 2 brothers. And this is where, yeah, because he had some different wardrobe on when he was in the dungeon. But this is where he finally rips off the clothing he has on and unveiling a Superman shirt that he's wearing. And we get a little snippet of the John Williams Superman theme. Yeah. Well, and, you know, because coincidentally, with Richard Donner directing this, he directed the first 2 Superman films. Yeah, well, besides, Goonies and Superman are both Warner Brothers property, so it does make sense, you know? And, you know, another thing is that, is it not obvious that the characters of Sloth and the Iron Giant, they are inspired and so much influence from Superman himself, right? Just, yeah. What a coincidence, and how very fitting for those two characters. The Iron Giant and Sloth being so inspired by Superman. Yeah, and I've seen a few artwork of that, crossovers with, like, say, Sloth, Superman, and most prominently, the Iron Giant and Superman. Well, and speaking of the Iron Giant and Superman crossing paths, well, we have the Multiverses game to thank for, because, yeah, actually having them right there. So, yeah, even in one of the trailers, unveiling the Iron Giant. But, yeah, back to Goonies, because, yeah, everybody else, the other Goonies, jumping out of the pirate ship. And unfortunately, they lost all the treasure, yeah. And as for Sloth, well, him coming face-to-face with his mama, his mama trying to, soften things up with him and, singing him, rock-a-bye baby on the treetop. And when mentioning and bringing up one of the lyrics in the song, Falls, yeah, that triggers Sloth because, yeah, this is where we find out that Mama Fratelli dropped Sloth. And thus, yeah, because why he looks deformed and such. And Mama Fratelli saying, okay, I might have dropped you once or twice. But Sloth doesn't take it very well. And he grabs his mama and tosses her off the pirate ship. Well, she deserved it anyways. Then Sloth jumping in and then catching up with the other Goonies. It's surprising to see that the Goonies immediately soften up towards Sloth. Well, because, thanks to Chunk. So, yeah. Goonies meet Sloth. Sloth meet the Goonies. Yeah. So, them trying to make their way out of the cave, and they just so happen to see some daylight. Yeah. Because the cave where the pirate ship is hidden is, there's daylight and civilization right outside. Yeah. And, they tried to light up some candles or something, because, they supposedly thought they got candles. They found some candles that they could use later on. But no. And it took them this long to discover that it's not candlesticks. They're dynamite. And by accidentally letting off the dynamite, they flee, but thankfully the dynamite sticks, at least one of them, I think just one, explodes and causes the rocks and boulders to explode, and because getting them out of there, well, not the entire rocks or anything, but it does cause the cave to erupt, to crumble. But with the Fratelli family, they actually no, because I remember now, because the Fratelli family, they tried to get some of the treasure and gold in the pirate ship, and they fell for the booby trap, the treasure that was specifically for One-Eyed Willie. By taking it, and another booby trap is unleashed, where the cave starts to crumble, and as for the Goonies and Sloth, they try to make a run for it. Sloth, with his strength, lifting up one of the boulders, and making their way out, except for Sloth, because Mama Fratelli is calling out to Sloth to help them out in their situation. And Sloth, still being very caring, he does help out the Fratelli family, his family, but still, And, and more on Chunk and Sloth because of the chemistry between them, and, because I love you, Sloth, Sloth love you, I love Chunk, it's just so good, But eventually, because, with the cave collapsing, and, all of the Goonies except for Sloth, and, technically Sloth has become a Goonie, and then, it's thanks to Chunk, all of the Goonies have escaped, and by this point, everybody at Goondocks, they hear about this commotion, and most notably, these, policemen on dirt bikes, because they discover and see that the Goonies are making their way back. And one of the policemen actually being Dick Donner, because he makes a cameo. And he usually made cameos in some of his movies. Like I can think of most prominently, he made cameos in the 2 Superman films he did, and a few others, but So he's one of the policemen, and to go ahead and mention some of the other cast members, because, Dick Donner was uncredited. The others that are uncredited, there's Idie, Chunk's older sister, being played by Idie Faye, if I'm getting her last name right. Parent number 3 being played by Rick Kahn. Cyndi Lauper. Oh yeah, because we get Cyndi Lauper on the TV screen at one point, and a song of Cindy's that plays. Yeah. So we have Mrs. Wong being played by Jenny Lou Tugend, if I'm getting the last name right. Data's sister being played by Lisa Kwan, and Chester Copperpot. Oh, okay, so yeah, just only in the photos, yeah. And yeah, Chester Copperpot just in the photos, being the late Keenan Wynn, if I'm getting his first name right, the son of Ed Wynn. Yeah, it's him. So making a cameo just in the photos of Chester Copperpot. Nice to see that he got to be a part of this. But yeah, so by this point, all of the Goonies family have reunited, and we get to see the entire, like, not just we don't just see Mikey and Bran's family. We see all the other Goonies, their families. We see Chunk's father and mother being played by Charles McDaniel, Elaine Cohen McCann, which, yeah, she is the mother of Jeff Cohen, because they actually did use some actual family members of the cast members for the end of this movie. Yeah, so Chunk's family, as I just mentioned, Data's father being played by Michael Paul Chan, and Data's mother was also in there too, just, yeah. And also Mouth's father being played by Nikki McLean, yeah. And a few others, just, yeah. And I don't think, she might have been credited, but just, yeah. Data's mother, yeah. And yeah, nice moments between the Goonies and their family, like, yeah. Well, seeing Data's father showing off his gadgetry, trying to take a picture, but yeah. And a very sweet moment where, Data's father, you know, saying to his son that you're my favorite invention. Because, you know, and how he says it, that's very sweet of him, yeah. And also, because, yeah, with Mikey and Brand, of course, reuniting with their parents. Same goes for Andy. And Andy turning to her father and asking, you know, she wants to be taught how to play the piano, because after playing the bone organ. And a moment where Andy, you know, has a nice moment between Mikey, because, you know, with what she specifically said, you know what it is. And then, yeah, because Andy and Bran once again kissing, and Bran's parents seeing this, and yeah, it's the mother that says, you know, just let her brother worry about that. No, her mother, yeah, let Andy's mother worry about that. I'd be concerned with her father, just, yeah, Andy's father, but yeah. With what Mrs. Walsh said, it was funny. And yeah, and also, well, we do see Sloth and the Fratelli family. They survived. They made their way out of the cave, and the policemen coming in, they were about to arrest all of them, including Sloth, but Chunk and the other Goonie members being quick enough to tell them that, no, Sloth is the good guy, the others are the bad guys. Even, I believe, yeah, the sheriff that was interacting with Chunk on the phone was lifted up by Sloth, so that escalated quickly. They're not going to bring in Sloth, so yeah. And then another sweet moment between Chunk and Sloth, where Chunk tells Sloth that he'll be living with him, you know, officially. Yeah, because, well, Sloth will have a much better family with Chunk and his family. Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, how Chunk's family feels about that, you know, and how they're going to feel about that with bringing in Sloth and their family. Well, probably because, yeah, they'll get used to it, and, well, because they'll quickly realize that, you know, Sloth is as gentle as a bunny rabbit, I guess you could say, just, yeah. But, yeah, that's a good happy ending for Sloth right there. However, the movie doesn't end right there, because, yeah, I mean, the villains are taken in, the Fratelli family. However, well, Mr. Perkins is not finished, because he steps in once again and telling Mr. Walsh to sign the papers, because, yeah, with their home and with the rest of Goondocks to be demolished. However, yeah, Rosalita, who steps in once again, realizes that, yeah, there is some treasure and such in this bag, and by, informing the others and Mouth translating, and, well, then they discover that they also have some gems, because, yeah, they managed to get some treasure, from the cave and the pirate ship, so yeah. And when, alerting Mr. Walsh about that, well, that means that Goondocks and their homes are not to be demolished or anything. So, yeah, so much for what Mr. Perkins and the country county club and such, what they were going to do, sucks to be them. So, yeah. Also, speaking of Mouth, can't forget to mention because, yeah, at that point, yeah, this is where romance between Mouth and Steph were starting to really build up. So, yeah. And right before the movie ends, well, the sheriff still finding it hard to believe with what all had just happened. Until, surprisingly, One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship comes out of the cave, and it's floating out in the water. Yeah, the sails and everything, yeah. And I guess you could say that, yeah, One-Eyed Willie disembarking once more, just, yeah, the pirate ship of One-Eyed Willie sailing off, and everybody's surprised by the sight of seeing the ship, and all of the Goonies coming together, yeah. And by the way, because, yeah, did I forget to mention that another famous quote from this movie, like, yeah, Goonies never say die, but also, from Sloth, hey, you guys! Yeah. But yeah, and, well, Mikey getting the last line where, he says goodbye to One-Eyed Willie. As One-Eyed Willie, and the pirate ship, they sail off, ending the movie like that. So perfectly. Yeah. What a great way to end off this movie right there. Just, yeah. A great happy ending for all of the characters, the Goonies themselves, just, yeah. The Goonies. Again, what a memorable, nostalgic, and the definitive adventurous film of all time. Literally. From the genius minds of Columbus, Spielberg, Donner, with a great cast, a great story, great music, and the score, funny, hilarious, and emotional moments, the epic stuff that happens in this movie, the adventurous stuff, the whole thing of finding treasure, and with what the Goonies do, the shenanigans they get themselves into. This movie, with its friendship, loyalty, all of the characters working together, just, yeah, the villains and some unexpected moments that I'm sure you didn't expect the very first time you watched this. Just, what more do I have to say? The Goonies. It's a classic. It's definitely a movie gem for sure of the 80s, from Donner, Spielberg, Columbus, Warner Brothers, you name it. Yeah. And I'm giving The Goonies, well, what the heck, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for The Goonies. And what about you guys? What did you think of The Goonies itself? What are your fondest memories of The Goonies? Any of you that got to experience this in theaters? Like, if you saw it at a re-screening, like if it was ever shown at your local movie theaters being re-screened or something for special events and for its anniversary. Have you been to the actual filming locations of Goonies? What are some of your favorite moments in the movie? Your favorite characters? And did you get some good laughs? Get a bit teary-eyed at some moments, really getting into what this movie had to offer. Is it one of your top favorites from Warner Brothers, Spielberg, Columbus, Donner, and with the cast members, and, what we know, the cast members, what we know them in as of today, because, keep in mind, they most prominently were known for being in this movie. Yeah, just overall. What do you think of The Goonies itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the Goonies. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. Take care. Happy anniversary to the Goonies, and until the Goonies 2, peace out. Goonies never say die.